This is Functional and Fabulous, the omni-channel podcast, where we unbox tales of online retail and digital transformation.
In this episode, recorded live at the Irish Museum of Modern Art during Studio 49's Excellence in E-Commerce 2026 event, our guest does a room sweep.
Is anyone here from Amazon?
Jer and Gordon dig up the past.
Can you take us into what happened around that time?
I'm sure it was not at all stressful.
Jer cannot keep a secret.
I hope your internal team knows this and I'm not giving away anything.
But our guest learns quickly.
I don't know how to capture that yet, by the way, and when I do, I'm not telling you because I want it for myself.
And Jer asks which of her children our guest's mother likes most.
Now, I know your mother has a preference, but where are you putting your bets going forwards?
This episode of Functional and Fabulous is brought to you with pride by Studio 49, retail e-commerce experts, omni-channel growth consultants, and cut-through performance marketing specialists. Studio 49, where your digital retail success is built.
I suppose we'll get into this. We are recording live. Hello, and you're very welcome to a special live episode of Functional and Fabulous. Coming to you today from the Irish Museum of Modern Art in Dublin. We're thrilled, delighted, and frankly a little starstruck to have Ciarán McCormack, the Chief Executive Officer of Select Tech Group and the Managing Director of DID Electrical, here with us today. Ciarán's story is one of the most remarkable in Irish retail. He began his career as a professional magician, performing for over 1,000 shows. He's a proud member of the Magic Circle in Ireland. And after a few detours through film school, a master's in education, and a stint as channel manager for Apple in Ireland, he took over as managing director of CompuB in 2015. At that point, CompuB was a single brand Irish Apple reseller. Now, 10 and a half years later, 4 major acquisitions, 1 examinership, 1 management buyout, and 1 global pandemic later, he now leads a multi-brand retail group spanning 50-plus locations across Ireland and the UK, with group revenues in excess of €325 million. Also, as of February this year, he is a newly appointed non-executive board member of Retail Excellence Ireland. Ciarán, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us today. You're very, very welcome to Functional and Fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the podcast. I'm glad I didn't have to read that out and that you managed it in one take.
Sometimes we have to do a couple of takes. So for anybody who doesn't know your story, you started as a professional magician, and now you're running a 325 million retail group. How does that happen, Ciarán?
Probably by complete mistake, I would say. It was never intended. I think I was 11 or 12, like any other child who got the Paul Daniels magic set. It was given to us by Santa, played with us in the garden one day, and then all of a sudden realised that I liked performing and I wanted to become a magician. So I started out my life as a 15, 16-year-old in school doing magic shows professionally. And I think genuinely that's what set me on my career to get here, but lots of different angles of how we got here. But the idea of being able to get up and talk and stand and present a message all came from the art of magic.
You still reach back to the experiences that you had.
Yeah.
And I know that you also treasured quite a lot the mentorship that you had from the people that you worked with in the Magic Group and your original, I suppose, mentor. What kind of lessons did Magic teach you about how to deal with people that you can now use in retail?
Yeah, I think that was probably the most important thing from my perspective was, look, I didn't get 600 points in my Leaving Cert. I got 350. I studied my arse off and still didn't get anything I wanted. I didn't get the course I wanted. So I definitely tried hard to do whatever I wanted to do, but didn't necessarily get the result of where I wanted to go. So in transition year, I had to go and get work experience. So like any of our kids now who are in secondary school. And I was part of the Magic Circle, and I went to, in my world, a famous magician. People probably don't know who he is, but a guy called Quentin Reynolds, and I asked him, could I get a job? And he misunderstood that job for work experience to work for free, that I was looking for a full-time job and that I wanted to leave school and be paid for the rest of my life to work as magic. He gave me that look of, don't be stupid, nobody wants to become a magician, and no. And then I couldn't get work experience in transition year. And then about 3 weeks later, he came back to me and said, I misunderstood what you're asking. And I was thinking about it, and actually, I thought it was quite brave that you asked for a job. And yes, I can give you a job at the weekend. And I started off building balloon animals. That was what I did. I put myself through school making balloon animals for kids in the public parks in Blackrock. And that's probably where all of my life skills came from, dealing with parents who believe that their child is better than everyone else's, believing that their child shouldn't queue and that they should be first. And eye contact, body language, understanding how to deal with an aggressive parent as a 16-year-old is an amazing skill to learn. But that's what it taught you. It taught you all of these personal interaction skills of trying to get people to queue up, listen to a 16-year-old when you're nobody and what you want them to do, and then trying to empower that. Well, it sounds very dramatic, but actually it was really, really powerful to bring into the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. So fast forward a couple of years, December 2019. So you acquired Stormfront, 23 Apple stores across the UK. You've got a Bang & Olufsen franchise in London, the entire technology floor at Harrods, and the Apple business. You're doing about 220 million. 6 months later, the world shuts down. Can you take us into what happened around that time?
I'm sure it was not at all stressful.
No, it wasn't. Look, it's really funny. I think if you talk to retailers, some of them tell you that they had the best time of their lives during COVID, being that there was the most performance in e-com, their sales were up, and while their stores were closed, some of their costs were way down, so they're doing really, really well. We had the complete opposite experience. It was the most horrific experience of my life from a commercial perspective. So, but I think you got to take a step back and try to understand how you got there. So very, very quickly, Company B was an Apple premium reseller. It had 7 stores in Ireland. It had a retail store in London in Selfridges. It owned the Apple retail store in London in Selfridges. And we had the opportunity to expand. So we got approached by a very famous TV brand called Bang & Olufsen. If you know who B&O are, it's £35,000 sterling for a TV. It's £80,000 for a speaker. And we got into the headspace that we've been convincing consumers for a very long time to buy a laptop that's nearly 4 times more expensive than the PC. So that to do that the same with the TV logic, that's how we felt. So over the space of about 3 years, we expanded into Bang & Olufsen. We ended up buying the Bang & Olufsen franchise in all of London. We were operating 9 stores, one in Harrods and one in Selfridges. And then at the same time, that sparked another opportunity while we were running the Bang & Olufsen store in Harrods. Currys was pulling out of Harrods because Currys used to run the technology floor there. And we had the opportunity to take over the whole floor in Harrods, which was just fun to think about. This is 18,500 square feet in Brompton Road, which is the most expensive retail rent probably in the world. And we took on 18,500 square feet. And then at the 3 months prior to COVID, we had the opportunity to buy a competitor of ours, which was an Apple reseller in the UK. So we bought them. And with the view of integrating it all over the next 6 to 7 months during that rapid expansion. And the fast version is we all have hit COVID. We all distinctly remember where our Taoiseach was in New York announcing that the parade was no longer going to happen in March and that we were shutting down. And then from our perspective, lots of challenges presented itself. So we had probably around 22 million of stock in our stores at that time, stuck in 30 odd locations all over the UK and Ireland. And so when COVID hits, landlords have the same problem as retailers. They want their rents because they need the money because they have to pay it to somebody. So it's not the landlord's fault. They needed the rent. The retailers needed the rent, and everybody needed their money. But that required you to sell your product, sell it fast, flip it, move it online. So the very fast version is during that expansion, we didn't get to integrate anything because we couldn't leave less than 100 meters from our house. So I certainly wasn't flying over to do the integration. And then we couldn't sell the stock because the shops were closed. And we couldn't get into the stores to get the stock, to take it out, to move it to an e-com perspective. And over the space of about 4 months, the original owner, so at that time I would have been what we call a professional manager. I had no skin in the game. I wasn't a shareholder. I was in there as a CEO. And we went back to the board and to the shareholders to say, look, we're stuck for cash. There's nothing wrong with the business. We just can't get the stock. We can't move it. Everybody wants to be paid. And we end up in a very public, press-heavy moment in time where we go into this new thing that I'd never heard of called Examinership. And Examinership is an Irish phrase It's only in Ireland. They don't have it in the UK. They call it CVA in administration, but it's only in Ireland. And it's probably one of the most amazing systems that the Irish law has for wrapping its arms around a business that is a good business, but is having a bad time for whatever reason. So we went into examinership with about 20 million of stock that we couldn't get our hands on, and trying to be able to move it around. And we, on day one of going into examinership, your role as CEO is to report into a new boss, someone you never met before, and they are a chartered accountant known as the examiner. And you go in and report to them the next day, who were appointed by the court. So we went in and we had a new boss for 100 days, and we basically had 100 days to save the business. That's the law. It's 100 days. So we had to find a buyer. The original owners didn't want to go any further with the business, and totally respect that. But there was 400 mortgages on the line from our perspective. That's how we looked upon it. We had 400 mortgages to pay. We had 400 staff. You don't sleep at night when you're realizing that you're not paying other people's mortgages, never mind your own. And you definitely take all the responsibility that's on you. Now, I didn't control the COVID. Fast version is we go through the examinership over 100 days. Every Saturday and Sunday, we reported to the examiner at 9 o'clock in the morning, telling them what cash was in the business, what was happening. No matter where you are, you were reporting it. And halfway through, we realized that the most viable way of this business surviving was to do an MBO, so to do a management buyout. So myself, at the time as CEO, the CFO, the financial director, the commercial director and the retail director, we came together and we put an offer on the table, and there was other offers. And our offer was accepted as the most viable method to take the business out of examinership, which was the only other solution to examinership is liquidation. So that means the following day, everybody goes, no one gets paid. But we paid everybody. We managed to put a plan together that everybody got paid and to be able to do it. And that was 6 years ago. And 6 years later, we're now at 320 million and doing acquisitions.
So as you went through that process and you came out of the other side of COVID, and retail started to work again, how quickly was business restored to the run rates that you were expecting to see?
It was instant. And this was the interesting thing. This was the whole point around examinership. There's nothing wrong with the business. What was wrong with a mad moment of time, bad luck, and cash stock being in different places. And my God, does it affect how you think about e-com going forward, and how you run your e-com business, and which way you want to service it, and what way you want to do click and collect, and all of those. But the stock started flowing instantly. Business bounced back immediately. The problem for us was that nobody knew what examinership was. And as a result, everyone thought examinership was liquidation, or they thought they were bust, or they thought it was bankrupt. And that was the problem. So the problem was rebuilding the trust with our customers online, because you also have keyboard warriors. Unfortunately, in e-com, we all see it. They're the bravest people in the world to be anonymous and say what they want, bad things about your business, and leave the worst reviews when most of them don't exist. So people will jump on a negative narrative there. So once we got the negative narrative out of the way, then it bounced back immediately. It was one of the reasons why we did name change.
Yeah.
Also.
But so you, at that point, prior to the management buyout, obviously, you were a professional manager. You could theoretically have walked away from the business clean.
Yeah.
You decided instead to take ownership of the business.
Yeah.
With your other colleagues. Did you kind of look at each other at that point in the middle of a pandemic, taking over this business that was in the examinership, and think maybe we're a little bit mad?
Oh yeah, I've always been naive, and I think that plays to your favor. Being naive and a little bit innocent and not overthinking things can play to your advantage. It gets you in a lot of trouble, but it can also play to your advantage. You stop overthinking things. So we have a running joke in our business, certainly myself and Alan, who's our CFO, and the two of us are the majority shareholders, but in the business is that every day, so since examinership, we've done an acquisition every 14 months since examinership. So it just shows that there was a business there. But every day when we go to do an acquisition, and we're in the middle of that acquisition, we ask ourselves one simple question. Are you sure you want to do this? And it's the part that's the most important part of that, right? Sorry for cursing, guys, but are you sure you want to do this? But it was the same with the examinership. And if you ask yourself that every day and the answer is still yes, then the core belief is fundamentally in the gut. And then you back yourself, right? Because we can make anything on paper look good in the business plan. Anything on an econ plan we want to put together. But if your gut is backing it up every day, that's it.
And every day you had a strong gut feeling that you do still want to do this.
Every day, yeah.
Single wobble.
Oh God, as I said to you, COVID was the most horrific experience. I mean, just because you back yourself doesn't mean that you're overly confident. It doesn't mean that your ego is massive and that, oh my God, that doesn't mean that we think we're amazing. It's just we think that we can do something a little bit different about this and that we can make money out of it. And that most importantly, we can pay the mortgages.
During the prep call that we had, you said something very interesting about the acquisitions. You said originally you were chasing revenue.
Yeah.
But since then, you've decided to take another approach to acquisitions. You've done 3 acquisitions in the recent past. Can you talk to us a little bit about your attitude towards acquisitions now?
Yeah, I think to do that, you got to take a step back and understand your attitude towards the business that you're in. And we're all in different businesses. So for 20 odd years, my business was Apple, notoriously high revenue, notoriously low margins. Like we're talking forecourt margins, right? So you're putting in €1,000 on an iPhone, but you're not putting in €1,000 of gross margin, right? You're putting in fuel margins on that. And I think when you start looking at other acquisitions, we learned a new word, and there's a running joke in our places. A new word was called margin. Other businesses actually make lots of margin, and if you start looking at those, that could work really, really well. So appliances has more margin than digital, right? So devices, so that's why in the DAD. So from our perspective, originally, again, being naive, I'm not professionally trained. So my master's is in education. That's where I started. I worked in education for years. For God's sake, I was a magician before that. And then I studied film and television. I didn't do economics. I don't have any form of management degree. So the 2 things we did around acquisitions. One, originally, yes, I would have pushed to chase revenue because that was an ego thing. It was look at this, we're now 100 million. My God, isn't that amazing? And yet 100 million businesses go out of business. It nearly happened to us, right? So we chase revenue. Then after that, actually, we would chase the gross margin and how much gross margin would that contribute. And then, of course, you naturally, as you mature, well, it's all about the net, right? And then how much net margin is that business pulling? And then how much multiples are you going to pay for that net to how many years would it go back? Now we chase what's the minimum threshold of return, i.e. how many years does it take for us to make our money back? And you want it to be smaller and smaller every new acquisition, not larger and larger. Because for every new acquisition we make, you're taking on another risk. So we like when we bought DID, so we bought DID 2 years ago, everybody said we were absolutely bonkers. Like DID was not known for being a premium brand. It was known for having lots of sales. The stores hadn't seen a huge investment in a very long time. And then there was us running Apple Premium reseller program, which was the complete opposite. When you bought that business, we took on 300 staff, 300 new mortgages the second day. And each one of those, then you take on the liability of redundancy if it doesn't work out. So the risk magnifies every time you do an acquisition. So we have 300 additional people to worry about what happens if it doesn't work out. So all of a sudden, you have to start thinking about the acquisition. From our perspective is, how quickly can you get your money back? What is the minimum? And what's your doomsday number? Our doomsday number is usually 3 years. We think something will happen in 3 years. In 3 years' time, that's weirdly how I frame it in my head. So that I have to make my money back before those 3 years. Now, if you could buy your house right now today and have it fully paid in 3 years, you think it's the best deal ever. That's how we think about this from that perspective. The other thing around DID and acquisitions also is audience growth. So we look at the net margin, that's where we were going, but where was our growth? And for us on the DID side, when we were looking at it, was my mom shopped in DID. My mom was a massive fan of DID. Now, prior to us buying DID, I would have been, internally hypercritical that their Apple experience wasn't as good as ours, right? And you do those things. But oh my God, the DID's demographic on the e-com, the reach, who it touches, where it goes, it was 20 times fold what our Apple was. And we're the only Apple reseller in Ireland. So those parts start to feed into your reasons for why you want to acquire and why you want to bolt them on.
I suppose, as an Apple premium partner, I think it feels to me, looking in from the outside, that it requires a huge amount of discipline because you're under the cosh to follow their rules. Their rules are the luxury rules, but the margin that you get is not the substantial margin. So it means that you have to be incredibly good and incredibly good at delivering the experience that Apple expects, and you have to be incredibly good at delivering the efficiency needed to make the margin. When you brought that then to a business like DID, what did that look like?
Yeah, it is a great question because if you were constantly running a high revenue business, Here's another way of thinking about that for a second. We all have shrinkage in our business. We all have a misship on DPD. We all have the product goes, and the big question we have on DPD from e-com is, do I insure it or not insure it? What's the risk compared to the extra £5 I'm paying to insure it, right? We all have that. If I lose one iPhone, I have to sell 20 iPhones to replace it. 20. So if I lose 1,000, I have to sell 20,000 euros worth to replace it. That's not my margin. There's more margin than that, but the cost of the business and everything else is what I have to do, right? So you get to a place when you're running that kind of style of business down to everything is very lean. Everything is very tight. The stores are premium. We pay more per square footage than anybody in Dublin of retail space if you go and look at the amount of space we actually use in the Apple shop because of the amount of product or lack of product that's there, because it's all about that spatial experience, right? And then you go to DID and it's a completely different piece. So when you're running your business from that perspective for very, very long, you learn how to do things very, very lean. When you do that and then you buy a business that has more margin to play with, you're taking the practices of running lean into that business. You start running that business lean. But you've got more room and more margin to reinvest. And that's the key. So with the DID acquisition, from our perspective, like in 2 years, we've opened 2 brand new stores. And everyone knows the cost of opening a 13,500 square foot that's completely kitted out, right? It's expensive, right? And we've announced we're opening another flagship DID store in Liffey Valley. So with the ability of being able to run a lean, rather than taking all the money out, we don't. We reinvest everything back in. So what's allowing us to do is to double down and grow DID. Like we're refitting 6 stores over the next 12 months to what we call the Limerick effect, which is the new flagship model that we have. That's what lean allows you to do. It allows you to have really good staff, pay them well. Well, not everybody will be happy on that comment, but pay them as best as you can and reinvest the piece. So Apple taught us to run the business very, very tightly on those tight margins. We've never taken those margins back out as very heavy dividend payments. And that's a very important point to us. We're guaranteed Irish. It's an Irish-owned business. Every single piece of tax is paid here, is spent here. Any profits that come out of the business are probably going back into one of your businesses as we spend it. And so all of that allowed us to be able to reinvest this piece back into it and allow it to grow. And DID will be a different business in 2 years' time because of it. So, yeah.
When you're investing in a store refit or you're opening a store, do you apply the same principles then as you would if you're acquiring a business? So do you want that store refit investment, or do you want that store opening paid for and done within 3 years? Or do you want a quicker return?
I want my money back tomorrow, usually, right?
So one of the questions I wanted to ask was, you've now got, and it's kind of like along with the store fit out, you've got 3 retail formats now. So you've got Select, which is a premium, decluttered Apple fanboy experience. You've got DID as a multi-vendor, multi-brand, broader range. And now you've got DID Essentials.
Yeah.
Now, I know your mother has a preference, but where are you putting your bets going forwards?
Jesus. Depends who's listening. If Apple's listening, I'm putting all my bets in Select. If Samsung and everyone else is listening, I'm putting all my bets in DID. If rural Ireland is listening, I'm putting all my bets in DID Essentials. So, okay, DID Essentials. Well, probably let's talk about that for a second because it fits very well to this conference. Is anyone here from Amazon? Yay. Okay. I had to be careful.
I think you're on the invite list.
So look, I mean, Amazon is absolutely incredible. It's an amazing business. And let's just talk that out for a second. Every single radio ad I hear on News Talk at the moment is Amazon advertising something with next day delivery. And I'm only as good as DPD. I have 24 vans on the road that we own. I have 24 actual van installers that will bring a white appliance to your house and deliver an install. And I can't get that to you tomorrow. I don't have the capacity. And so as a result, one of the issues we have against Amazon is that Amazon is the way I phrase this, Amazon is a SDA supplier, small domestic supplier. We call them appliances, but you probably have a different one. It means it's a one-person install. It's a one-person delivery. Nowhere in the world that I'm aware of, even in the US, does Amazon have a 2-person install. So that limits the ability of what they can deliver. So they can't deliver a large fridge freezer, because it requires 2 people. So that was point 1, right? So that is the logic around the Essentials for a second. Point 1 was, I can't compete against Amazon, and I'm the only Irish appliances retailer left that hasn't outsourced its 3PL. We own our own van fleet. We don't outsource it. We own our own. We've 78,000 square feet warehouse as well to be able to do this, right? So If I can't do it, how the hell is anyone else going to do it? And we own it because we're not big enough, right? The second part was that with Amazon, how do we compete against Amazon when they're literally competing against us, against you, and every single local indigenous business in the country, right? And at the same time, I absolutely loved them and admired them. So I got this real conflict of I admire them, but we got a problem. So with DID Essentials was born from a model that DID Electrical needs over 13,000 square feet to open a shop. But it also needs an audience to open a shop, and it needs a footfall to do that. So it needs large format retail parks, usually, for that to work. But they're limited. When you look at outside of those, the most growth that could be is in rural Ireland, and all of the towns that are there, phenomenal experiences. But we made a conscious decision that if we were to go into rural Ireland, we'd have to go up against them. Now, I'm all pro-Irish, as in for growing Irish businesses, for doing that. I'm not for trying to take jobs away from anybody. So we started to think about if we have an Amazon problem and we can't deliver as fast as they can, and we have all of these rural, amazing retailers, can we do something together? Cue DID Essentials. DID Essentials is all about your essential appliances, not your luxury appliances, your essential. Believe it or not, no one can actually live without a washing machine anymore. And if you have kids, you will definitely not live without a dishwasher, even though you can hand wash. You won't do it. We were talking about this. You won't do it, right?
No one's going to throw stuff.
So these are what we call distressed purchases. What if these distressed purchases where you didn't care about the brand that much, but you wanted a good brand, but didn't care about it, was there today? And what if it was from Mary, who's been supporting the local GA club for 25 years and her logo is on it? Who are you going to buy from? But what if the price was similar to the Amazon price and Mary had it today and you could collect it today and you didn't have to wait the 12 hours or 24 hours from Amazon, or you would drive your 20 minutes as you always do rurally to go see Mary to buy it, would you do it? And the answer is yes, they do in their droves. So we've opened 6 DID Essential stores, one in Sweeney's in Achill Island. And Sweeney's owns the Super Value. Sweeney's have the cafe, they've got the hardware centre, they've got the garden centre, they've got the furniture centre, and now they've also got an electrical centre, which is DID Appliances, which is DID Electrical. So the logic of DID Electrical was to help us have instant product available from an e-com perspective that we couldn't win in places right now, right there, because we can't win on just-in-time logistics. We just can't. We're not big enough, and I'm not sure any other than a Tesco or a day, but they're not in that game. So that was the logic of DID Essentials. Your essential purchases when you want them from your local partner who has been supporting your GA club for donkey's years, and you'll be loyal to them. They make the money. We design the store. We work in partnership. We design the store. We do all the training. We do the curation, and then we order the stores weekly to make sure that they're at the level of a premium experience where we want to go. And it's a model that could actually roll out to any town, anywhere. And for every time that we have a problem around Amazon, well, why aren't we in Letterkenny? Why aren't we in Kilshamrock? We could be anywhere, as long as there's a local Mary or John that has some experience in that and wants to do it.
So I guess you're saying now that you can't out Amazon.
No.
But there are multiple other service dimensions that you can compete on through position, through service, through heritage, and you're not necessarily having that price next day delivery discussion.
I think the problem and I'm one of these, every time we have a problem, we try and fix it with technology. And yes, I'm a huge AI and I love it, right? But we try and build the next best, greater system to compete against the guys or gals so that we can go against them. And sometimes old school actually is the next best, greatest thing because we've moved so far away from it. We've moved so far away. Like our e-com model, by the way, in a future world order is you can click and collect from DID and in any DID Essentials. How cool is that when it's Mary and our local team? That's the model. But that's old school thinking, because what is it? It's simply, in our model, by the way, probably Amo are sharing and Andy and Caitlin are probably going to give it to me, but in our model, we don't do inter-transfers for click and collect, right? It's just the cost of that and the nature of it. For example, if you go to some of the sports stores, some of the more international ones, they charge you $4.95 for a click and collect now, because they're the equivalent of DPDing it straight in as a click and collect model, and they're charging for that. Our click and collect model is always in stock. And that is the interesting fix here. So it is trying to outsmart Amazon, but it's doing it with an in-stock position of an old school thinking, just having a new digital way of pushing it.
I think it's a fascinating piece. It's, we're always trying to identify where the moat is, what is the defensible competitive position that you can put up. And in this case, your moat is the 110 home value stores that have developed the physical presence and the relationship in the community, and you're able to drop your proposition, your offering into those places. And Amazon doesn't have that, which is,
Yeah, but it's also about leaning into community, right? And I think we don't do enough of that. Look, last week has been a challenge for all of us, right? And I think parts of that, we've lost that sense of community last week. We didn't behave in the community spirit that supported all businesses, and it damaged more than what it was trying to fix, I think, from that commercial perspective, right? So I think, and the community spirit being is that if you can team up with local people and drive that business further in a community way, that stands. It stands more than anything else. And how many people go out of their way to try and buy Irish if it's a €1 difference in price? They'll try and do it and try and support local. The community bit, I think, is if whoever cracks that from a digital perspective is the one that's going to win, because that sense of community, we lost it last week. I think we're an incredible society for it. We are big believers of it. It's why you got the best sponsorships in all of the GA clubs locally is all the local people. It's all there. That's the moat. I don't know how to capture that yet, by the way. And when I do, I'm not telling you because I want it for myself. But I think that is the moat.
That's just a future case study for everybody else.
But I think Vinny O'Brien has been speaking for years about the cooperative. What's more Irish than a good cooperative? And that is that kind of, let's say, non-technology fixing position of getting together, partnering with each other, and bringing the best of both worlds to the end customer. I'm very curious. So we talked a little bit about Amazon as a competitor, and obviously you have your position there. And we wish you the very best of luck. The ID Essentials looks like it's going to be very, very exciting for you.
Or it'll fall flat in its face. But the most important thing is go fast, fail fast, go again.
Yeah, exactly. But, your biggest competitor, I guess, in some ways for years has been Apple. So also your Supplier, the brand that you sell and you leverage. How did Select and how does Select secure for itself a competitive advantage over Apple when I can go directly to the Apple website and get the exact same product for effectively the same price? You can't discount it. What can you do?
Yeah, great question. You struggle, right? And for a very long time. And I think we have found our rhythm on that now. And I'll try and explain that very, very quickly. But yeah, look, so Apple is the most amazing company and we wouldn't be here without them. So there's nothing but good things to say. But at the same time, they're also your biggest competitor, right? So your supplier is your competitor. They have their own website. You have your website. So you're competing, even though you're all in the same team together. So, and again, that's just channel management and omni-channel, right? So we just deal with one part of it, the omni-channel and the Apple pit, right? So that's the first bit. The second bit is that traditionally Apple product is not discounted because of the nature of the margin structure. You have to pay your rent, so you need some margin to pay stuff. So as a result, what do? So we don't charge for delivery within Select, and that hurts us badly for DPD. We don't charge because we have to send everything by insured delivery because of the fact that it's €1,000, right? And I told you how many I have to sell. And so as a result, we don't charge for delivery. So that's a unique part number one. Nearly every other electrical retailer does charge for it, right? Because you should, right? Second bit then is the question of why buy from us. And we have this question every single day. If you walk into one appliance store and walk into another, what's the difference? If you walk into one flower shop and another, they hate me using this phrase. I say they as in my own team I classify a lot of people as DEU, which are dumb end users. And we come across them for lots of reasons, around misclicks on websites, misorders, or also dumb end users don't know the difference between two flower shops. They don't know the difference between that. So what is that unique why buy from us? So on the Select side, we had to come up with three things. So we are an authorized service provider in Ireland. So we are like a car mechanic when it comes to your phone or your laptop. We are fully qualified to put the parts in. So we learned a lot about the cost of repairing, right? And we use that knowledge to then say, well, now that we understand the cost of repair, we understand the fixed cost nature of them. What if we forecast that out? What will it cost us? And we're able to forecast that out and include it as margin erosion so that we now offer a 3-year warranty with every product in Ireland for free. But it should cost about £300, right? The 3-year warranty. Then we moved on and said, okay, that's one step. So we give them free delivery. We give a 3-year warranty. Apple don't give a 3-year warranty. They give the usual consumer warranty and no one else does. We also offer 7 days tech support. What we did was we actually built a bespoke app completely based around the e-com model where we needed a dumb end user who didn't know how to FaceTime somebody, or if we sent them to a website to log in so we can remotely diagnose their machine, how is that going to work? So we built a system where we send them a text message. That text message has an encrypted link. That link opens up a browser. That browser identifies them. And then from that perspective, it turns on the video camera with their permission. They have to say yes, of course, and it turns on the microphone. So there's no FaceTiming, not knowing what their login is. There's no Zooming. There's no Teams. And from that perspective, we can then help them with their problem at home. We can do that for free. And then the third bit is we actually built training programs and training courses. And we recorded all those training programs and training courses. And we actually sell them in the store, but we offer that for free. So if you buy an iPad, a Mac, a watch, or a phone from us, we give you a 3-year warranty. We give you 7 days tech support. And that can be activated at any stage through the life of the duration of the thing. And then we also give you the training, and we give you the free delivery. We also give you free setup. That's us trying to say, why buy from us? It's expensive.
That's a very thoroughly answered question.
Sorry.
No, absolutely. I love it because, it's one of those things. How do you compete when you have the same thing that the next person has? And you're talking about educating your customer, solving problems for them. Everybody knows, I certainly know what it's like to get a phone call from my father or mother who needs to figure out how to use their iPhone.
Yeah, we talk a lot about knowing your proposition, and that is knowing your proposition.
Yeah, but there's a problem with that, right? And it all sounds great, right? But it's not all great. Did you know that?
No,
Exactly.
I didn't. No.
There you go, and there's the problem, right? So it is all great having that proposition that we know internally, but as Andy as our group director of marketing, he's here to say, he'll tell you is that you're limited on your marketing spend from an e-com perspective and getting the message out there. So your cost of acquisition, right? So how do you get that message out there? We still haven't fully figured that bit out because the nature of our margin limits our ability to what we can spend in marketing, to what we can do as a digital buy and where we go out there. So we know the proposition. We still haven't figured it all out yet.
Know it and communicate it.
Yes.
I feel for you, Andy, if you're in the audience.
You said an interesting thing as well during our prep call. You said many interesting things. But one that stuck with me was that you have a philosophy. I hope your internal team knows this and I'm not giving away anything, but
I don't know what you're about to say, but go on.
That we're a different business every 6 months.
Yes.
And you have to be. For businesses that kind of, like a lot of retail businesses, you've done similar things over a long period of time. What would you say that looks like, changing every 6 months, and how much effort is involved in it? And, what does it involve?
What does it look like? Well, I used to have hair. Does that help on the physical part of what it looks like? Yeah, so we do. We have a philosophy, I have a philosophy internally. And you have to be very careful when you say this, by the way, and how you say it, because it could be completely misinterpreted. We are a different business every 6 months. We cannot use people as a reason not to change, right? That doesn't mean that we don't value our people and that we're going to change because of them. It means there's an awful lot more to this, by the way, right? But it means we have we've it's not Mars. There's loads of this in business and in all the case studies. But 50 reasons not to change. I'm sure you all have it. And the 50 reasons why a business doesn't change are usually because of people. And it's we don't do it that way. We can't afford it. But they're all assumptions. They're not actual facts. And so from our perspective we have to be totally, absolutely, categorically clear that if you have a no, that's okay. But that's your gut. So follow your gut, but you must come back with the facts. All right? And if you don't come back with the facts, then it can't be a no. Because the facts will tell me it's a no. Right? That's telling me that there's absolutely no way to do it. And that's never the case, right? So we believe in following your gut, but you must back it up with facts. That's the only request. For us to do that, that also means though anything that we offer, our experiential offer, what we're doing in store, how we're doing it, we have to change every 6 months. I mean, I think if we didn't offer a 3-year warranty on our select side of the business, because while you don't know about it yet, and you may not be actively coming to us because of it, my God, you know about it when you're in the store. My God, that's the first thing as a part of our sales journey. Are we telling you that why you should not leave here because you saw it for €4 cheaper, because they don't get this, right? So we do use that. Those new things are constantly organic. They're constantly changing from our perspective. DAD Essentials did not exist on paper or as an idea less than 9 months ago. But within 3 months, it was up and running and it was formatted and the stores were built. And as a result, that's the impact of that. Now, that has pros and cons.
Yeah.
Your team get very tired of you very quickly. They either learn that your brain, look, I was diagnosed very late in life with ADHD 4 years ago, but it doesn't surprise me in the slightest based on how my brain actually works. I think the only thing it ever taught me was to be kinder to myself, because I used to beat myself up so much. I think about, I can't believe you said that. Why'd you say that? And so as a result, anyone working with me now has to learn very quickly at the pace my brain goes and the way they go. And some people love it, but some people struggle with it. And then we just need to make sure the people struggling with it, how they get there. But that is the kick into a different business every 6 months. We have to be constantly changing. The AD Essentials did not exist. The 3-year warranty wasn't there. We own a distribution business, which we don't even talk about, but that didn't exist as a period of time because we weren't able to get the correct access to the stock that we needed. So we said, well, fuck it, why don't we just buy our own distribution business and supply ourselves? So we were able to change the margin structure on that as well. And there's just some of the examples of trying to change consistently.
I kind of dress those up as the maverick ideas in my business. A lot of people also don't like, the change. I call it evolution, not change. So to dress it up a little bit nicer, but I think it ends up being the same thing. Any final questions before we go on?
No final questions from me. I just want to say thank you very much, and it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Ciarán.
Pleasure.
Ciarán, yeah, it's been an absolute education, both in the prep call and today on stage. I'd like you to put your hands together for Ciarán McCormack. You've been listening to Functional and Fabulous with Ger Keohane and Gordon Newman. If you'd like to know more about the podcast or about Studio 49 and omni-channel stories, please go to functionalandfabulous.ie. Our sound engineer was Elaine Smith, and the show was produced by Roger Overall.